Here we are. Today's our last session together, right? So we're doing volume 6. I just got news from the publisher about volume 7, which was supposed to come out on March 29th. And with all the shipping things and people resigning and companies not, the delay in people and companies making certain products, the publishers who were supposed to publish the book don't have paper to do it. So volume 7 is going to come out May 17th instead of March 29th. Yeah, so how did they say? Que sera, que sera? We don't have a choice. So, but anyway, we have, today to talk. So let's just take a minute and come back to our breath and cultivate our motivation. And then we'll go into the next talk, or the next book. You want to take that? So we're incredibly fortunate to have met the Buddha's teachings. And I don't know about you, but when I think of how my life probably would have turned out had I not met the teachings, had I not met my teachers, my life would have been totally different. I probably would have made a mess of my life and other people's lives, and also been very unhappy. So that's just talking about this lifetime and the benefit of meeting the Dharma and practicing. But when we think of future lives and being able to create the cause for happiness, and especially the causes to be able to meet the three jewels, to meet the teachings, have the opportunity to practice in future lives so that we can attain full awakening, then the value of our present life really stands out. So when we think of the future, what our present life, the causes we can create for the future, really marvelous in terms of generating wisdom and compassion. And when we think of the past, the causes that we needed to create in the past to have this present life, that's also remarkable. Like, how did we manage in different lifetimes to accumulate so many causes for a precious human life? So having this great opportunity right now, let's really use it wisely, kindly, with purpose, and with dedicating our lives to the welfare of living beings and to the spiritual goal of full awakening, to bring that about. Then open your eyes and come out of your meditation. So I want to go over the contents of Volume 6 with you, Courageous Compassion, which has Tara on the cover. Yeah. And this Tara is from a thangka that was gifted to me by Dharma Friendship Foundation, where I used to teach a long time ago. So this volume has two parts in it, okay? So you'll remember last week, we talked about Volume 5, which was about generating bodhicitta. So this volume is, part 1 is how to live with compassion by living with the bodhisattva perfections. So it goes through the 10 perfections. We often hear 6 perfections, but there's actually 10. And the last 4 are condensed into the perfection of wisdom. And then part 2 is talking about the 3 vehicles and the 5 paths. And that talks about the Shravaka or hearer vehicle, solitary realizer vehicle, bodhisattva vehicle, from both the viewpoint of the Pali tradition and the Sanskrit tradition. And what's unique in the explanation in the Sanskrit tradition is I relied on a salam text. Salam means grounds and paths. Yeah, that the stages you go through on the path to awakening. And salam in the monasteries is usually taught from the viewpoint of the Yogacaryas, Vatantrika, Madhyamaka. But I found a text where it is explained from the Prasangika viewpoint, which is, Prasangika is the tradition we follow for learning about emptiness and so on. So it's a slightly different version, which is quite interesting. Yeah. When Geshe Dadel, who's trained in the monasteries, heard this version, he was like so surprised because he had learned it as it's taught from the Yogacaryas, Vatantrika, Madhyamaka viewpoint. So when I was thinking about what do I share with you in this volume, because there's many good things, going through the 10 perfections, also the 10 paramis, the 10 perfections from the viewpoint of the Pali tradition. Yeah, that's quite interesting. And then in the section about the 3 vehicles and their fruits, there's some really lovely quotations from the Dasabhumika Sutra, the sutra on the 10 grounds. But what I decided to share with you today is from chapter 4 called Sharing the Dharma. And this chapter is straight from His Holiness's, perspective from his mouth. In 1993, there was a conference in Dharamsala of His Holiness and Western Buddhist teachers. And I was able to attend that conference completely by accident. The Western Buddhist teachers didn't invite me, but I happened to be talking to His Holiness's secretary, and he told me to come. So that was my good fortune. Yeah, otherwise, forget it. So in that conference, there were many Western Buddhist teachers from the different traditions, and they were presenting, we had different morning and afternoon sessions focused on specific topics. Okay, so there was one topic about, what to teach in the West, and another one about, there were a lot of scandals at that time, so how to handle that. And another one about the Sangha, the monastics, and, so many sessions on different topics. And I was charged after that with writing a book about it. And because the way it was organized was the Western Buddhist teachers would make a presentation, and then His Holiness would respond, and then there could be some Q&A. And that book never got published. Okay, there were some difficulties, but I saved the manuscript. And so in this book, on chapter 4, Sharing the Dharma, we start off with the 4 ways of gathering disciples, which are in the standard Lamrim text. But then what I did is I put in so many of His Holiness's comments that were taken from that conference. Okay. The other chapter I used a lot of his comments on was in volume 2, what he said about the relationship with the spiritual mentor. Okay. Because Holiness has, in one way, he's very traditional. In another way, he speaks his mind, and he is willing to revise things according to the culture and what is actually needed for the time. So, I'll just read the different outlines in this chapter, and then get into a little bit of it. I thought that might be quite interesting to you because it's not something that is going to be available in another Lamrim book. Okay, so we had 4 ways of gathering disciples in the Tibetan tradition, in the Pali tradition, and also the Chinese tradition. Okay, then suggestions for Western Dharma teachers, the essence of the Dharma and its cultural forms, propagating the Dharma, what to teach in the West, teaching according to the audience, translations and rituals, many ways to benefit sentient beings, areas of caution, respect for the Dharma, Buddha Dharma in Asia, and Dharma centers. Okay, so those are some of the topics that he addressed. So I thought I would start reading his section on suggestion for Western Dharma teachers. So although it said for Western Dharma teachers, it actually includes, his thoughts about how Buddhism is practiced and propagated in the West, now especially with many Western Dharma teachers. I think they just had a conference in New York. Did anybody from Jewel Heart go to it? It was some kind of Western Buddhist teachers. I didn't go either. But I know they have these every so often with people from, Insight and Zen and everything like that. So, So this is what His Holiness says. Okay, so in addition to the 4 ways of attracting others that are found in the scriptures, I would like to offer some suggestions specifically for Westerners who teach the Dharma. Although what follows applies to Asian teachers as well, Westerners do not have centuries-long lineages of Buddhist teachings in their own culture to look to for examples. And that's a really important point, okay? Because in Asia, you have so many centuries of practitioners, and the people who come to the Dharma, they learn the Dharma often in their families. Or even if they didn't learn the Dharma so much, they learned how to act in a Buddhist temple. They learned the etiquette. They learned about how to make offerings, kind of things that you just pick up by being in the family, the practices. And most of us were any of you raised Buddhist? Yeah, I wasn't. So, we're coming from a totally different culture, probably having been raised with some Judeo-Christian concepts that were ingrained in our minds as kids. But when we come to Buddhism, we're not always aware of what we're carrying on from our childhood about religious concepts. And then we project that onto Buddhism. And then we have trouble understanding some very fundamental Buddhist concepts. Okay. So, for example, the whole thing about karma. Okay. Westerners come and they hear about karma and they hear about the different realms. And if they were brought up Catholic, it's this whole thing of, heaven and hell and reward and punishment and sin, and I'm doomed and there's nothing I can do about it. And all this stuff comes up, and then it gets projected onto what the Buddha said, simply because there's a few ideas that are similar. And so I think it's something really important for all of us to bring these things out in the open and discuss them. Okay. Similarly, people will take the idea of God and project it on Buddha. Okay. And even in Asia, some people regard the Buddha as a god and pray to the Buddha, Buddha, may my son get a good job. May my daughter marry the right person. May we win the lottery. These kind of worldly things, because people don't really understand what prayer is and how it works in a Buddhist context. Okay. So our job, I think, as first generation practitioners in the West, is to really look deeply in our own minds and see what concepts are there that come from the Judeo-Christian upbringing we had, or whatever kind of upbringing, religious upbringing we had, and then bring those out, mention them to people, and really discuss amongst ourselves about, where do we still have those things floating around inside of ourselves, and how do they block us from understanding the teachings? And then discuss them. And what's the difference between what the Buddha said and what Judeo-Christian theology says? Okay. So, for example, I don't know if you've had this happen, but I've had, I remember in particular, one woman who was practicing the Dharma for a long time. And then one of her parents died. And she was telling me that in the case of death, somehow, her Christian upbringing is so much more consoling than Buddhism. Because in Buddhism, she had to think of where was her, I don't know, mother or father, but where was her parent reborn? And what kind of karma did they create? And maybe they're not in a good place. Whereas Judeo-Christian, the pastor or whoever tells you, no, they went to heaven and everybody goes to heaven. Yeah, except the people you don't like, they go to hell. Okay. And it doesn't matter that other people don't like you, but you don't go to hell, but they think you do. We forget that. So, so she was saying, it's just so much more comforting. God takes care of them and will take them to heaven. and they'll live happily ever after, and I'll get to see them for eternity after I die. Which begs the question of, do you really want to live with your family for eternity? Okay. We won't go into that topic now, but whereas Buddhism, it's there. You create the causes and you experience the result of what you create. And nobody is going to sweep down and pick you up and save you. Yeah, you have to practice and change your own mind and create the causes for a good rebirth. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot there to think about. So His Holiness continues, I appreciate the enthusiasm of Western teachers and acknowledge how much they have done to spread the Buddha Dharma to benefit sentient beings and to decrease suffering. As Buddhism spreads in your countries, more of you will become teachers. Nevertheless, Buddhism is new in the West, and you do not yet have a culturally suitable role model to follow for being a Dharma teacher or a proper role model to follow for a proper teacher-student relationship. You must proceed slowly and carefully. You're pioneers now, and over time, such role models will naturally evolve. So this is really true. If people start to teach, what role models do we have? Western teachers, don't feel very comfortable being treated the way we treat Tibetan lamas. Yeah. And the students don't know how to treat you. And being a monastic, they don't know how to treat monastics either. It's all up for grabs. And so some people are like completely respectful and like this and wanting to do everything right. And then other people are, they just sit down and lean back and their teacher walks by and, oh, hi. They don't get up and stand. They don't put their palms together. It's just, oh, there's that old guy again. And, they go from one extreme to the other. It's really quite strange. So we don't have those role models. Mm-hmm. Before instructing others, it is essential to cultivate your own understanding under the guidance of a qualified spiritual mentor. Listen to teachings, study hard, and relate what you learn to your life. In this way, your level of understanding will grow from just gathering information to critical reflection that impacts your life and your choices. Okay. So what we see now is quite interesting. Who is teaching Buddhism now? Okay. The academics, people in academia are really prospering. They're translating, they're teaching the philosophical works. They may not have had teachings from a Tibetan Lama, but if you're an academic, you can make up your own understanding or interpretation of what scriptures say. Okay? So if you're somebody who is not a Buddhist, but you're interested in Buddhism, then you read something and you think you understand it, but maybe you do or maybe you don't. I think it's really nice when the academics are practitioners. Yeah. Then you can really see, the quality of teachings and the respect for the tradition. And then you get people who have been to a few teachings, maybe a couple of retreats, and then they become teachers. Yeah. And especially now with the mindfulness craze, you do a little Buddhism and then you learn some mindfulness from some apps, and then you become a teacher of mindfulness, kind of maybe with Buddhism, maybe not. Okay. No lineage, no, relationship with the teacher. And we all know that if you have a relationship with a teacher, it really changes your practice. Yeah, doesn't it? Because when you mess up, or if the group in general is not doing things well, the teacher, if you have a Dharma teacher, the Dharma teacher will tell you. And your Dharma teacher will direct you what to do and what not to do. And they will point out wrong conceptions because they know. I mean, Gelek Rinpoche, for example, he did all the usual monastic training. He knew the scriptures. So you knew that when you heard the teachings from him, you were getting the real McCoy. But then when you have people who maybe are academics, but interpreting their own things by themselves because they haven't studied with a practitioner, a real Lama, or you get people who are just doing mindfulness and teaching that as a spiritual path. They don't have teachers. They don't have a relationship with a tradition. So you don't really know what you're getting. And in the West nowadays, people are not so aware of this. And also, when you have a teacher, your teacher gives you specific instructions. They may be given to the group. It doesn't matter. They give the instructions are for you individually or for the group. Whatever the teacher instructs, we should listen to and take to heart and try and practice. Yeah, because we have that spiritual connection, and our teacher inspires us. And so that is missing so much. I think now, as Westerners start to teach, and they're not quite sure what they want to do. I've talked to some friends who are Buddhists, and they're university professors, and they don't want to be treated like a Lama. They want to be treated like a professor. Okay, so then what are they, especially if they're teaching to a Dharma group and not in a university classroom like they usually do during their job? Okay, so you have all these things. Okay, with a stable understanding derived from years of study and practice. Okay, and PhD is hard, but it's nothing like what they go through in the monasteries. Yeah. So with a stable understanding derived from years of study and practice, as well as a humble awareness that there is so much more to learn, you will be able to explain the Dharma well. Do Westerners excel in being humble? Hardly. Yeah. We think if we're humble, when you go for a job interview, are you humble? No. You tell them all the things, this and that and the other thing. And, and if there's something you don't know, you say, oh, but I'm a very fast learner and I'll pick that up very quickly. Yeah. I was just looking at somebody's website because when people write me and ask for questions about things, I have to check, check. And so I was checking one website, and this person is teaching mindfulness and listed all the Dharma courses. And the list looks so long, it's like 20 courses. Now, I ask you, is going to 20 teachings, yeah? Remember when you were a newbie? If you went to 20 teachings, did you have a good understanding of the Dharma? No, it takes many more than 20 teachings. Yeah, even 20 weeks. Yeah. Or doing one retreat. Does one retreat give you, I don't know about you, but what I usually learn on retreats is how nutty my mind is and how my mind, compared to what the Buddha taught, there's a big gap between them. Okay. That's the primary thing I learned during retreat. And then I have to try and narrow that gap. Okay. So it's really interesting what people write as their their CV for being a Dharma teacher or mindfulness teacher, whatever it is. Okay. Awareness that you have much more to learn and practice. Otherwise, as Dharmakirti said, how can you explain something to others that is just words to yourself? If you can speak from experience and deep understanding, your words will make a difference to others. And that's really true. That's really true. Western teachers have asked me, what qualities must we cultivate to become a reliable spiritual mentor to others? Who and how should we teach? The Buddha gave a vast variety of teachings. Which ones are most suitable for us to teach? How do we work with students without becoming emotionally entangled with them? Good question. How do we ensure that we remain balanced so that our practice progresses? And so that's what he's going to respond to as I continue reading. Good questions, huh? Yeah. Whether you're a teacher or not, these questions really pertain to how are we as a Western Buddhist practitioner. Okay. So he starts out by saying, in terms of the qualities to develop, to go back to chapter 4 of the Foundation of Buddhist Practice, where we talked about the Vinaya teacher, the Mahayana teacher, the Tantric teacher, and the different qualities necessary for all of them. So he says, if you want to be a teacher, it's the same qualities. Yeah. So look for those. So before beginning to teach, you must have mental stability derived through your Dharma practice so that your life is calmer. Students see teachers as role models who have the possibility to help them. If the teacher is a happy and peaceful person, they will admire her and want to learn from her. If she is distracted and anxious, students will wonder whether Dharma practice actually subdues the mind. In addition, if the teacher is always preoccupied, disorganized, and stressed, they won't have time to pay attention to students' needs or to teach them in a serious, consistent manner. So if you wish to teach the Dharma, you must examine to what extent you possess the 10 qualities of a Mahayana spiritual mentor. So look closely at your ethical conduct, meditative experience, understanding of emptiness, knowledge of scriptures. To what extent do you care about the well-being, temporal and ultimate, of the students? Are you irascible, surly, and quick to anger, such that students are afraid to approach you? Or are you content and patient, or do you constantly complain about one thing or another? That's what I do. I'm complainer in chief. You ever need a complaint? Let me know. I will come up with for one with you immediately. Yeah, my opinion factory, especially the complaint department, works overtime. Okay, so you have to see these kinds of things in yourself. Dharma practice isn't just looking, having an altar and looking like a practitioner and sitting cross-legged and whatever. It's really seeing what's there inside of our mind and then trying to see what is beneficial and what is harmful, and how to increase our beneficial attributes and subdue the harmful ones. We've got to do that, and that's the real Dharma practice, actually. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, you've probably heard the teaching about, was it Lama Atisha? There was one man circumambulating a stupa. Do you remember that? Some of you, should I tell it again? Yeah. Okay. I love this story because it just reminds me of what is important. Okay. So I think we'll say Lama Atisha. I'm not sure if it was him. Okay. I'm not good on the details of the stories, but I get the point. So he was somewhere near a stupa. He saw one man doing korwa around the stupa. And he said, what are you doing? And the man said, I'm practicing the Dharma, doing circumambulations. And Lama Atisha kind of said, check if that's really practicing the Dharma. So then the man thought, okay, I'll try something else. That Lama didn't seem convinced I was practicing. So he started doing prostrations. So he was out there, doing his 100,000 prostrations up and down and up and down. It should be down and up, actually, down and up. And doing his prostrations and counting them and everything. And the Lama came by again and said, what are you doing? And he said, I'm practicing the Dharma. And Atisha said, check up. So then the man started reading scriptures. Yeah. If you've ever been to Nepal or India, you'll find Tibetans sitting by the side of the road or around stupas reading scriptures. And so the man's, reciting 1,000,000 words a minute. And Lama Atisha says, what are you doing? And he says, I'm practicing the Dharma. And Atisha said, that's not really practicing the Dharma. So then the man said, well, then tell me, please, what is practicing the Dharma? And Atisha said, relinquishing the 8 worldly concerns. Wow. When you really look at the 8 worldly concerns, again, I don't know about you, but these constitute how I spend most of my time, on the 8 worldly concerns. Okay? So the real Dharma practice is working with our mind of the 8 worldly concerns, working with the mind that cherishes self more than others. Okay? Working with the mind that always looks at situations from the viewpoint of what can I get out of it? Or even meeting people, what can I get out of them? How can they benefit me? Or are they going to harm me and I better stay away from them? Okay. So really practicing involves working with this stuff that's there in our mind that permeates our regular life. And all this stuff is basically considered normal in our culture. Yeah? Taking care of yourself first. Yes, that's what we're supposed to do. Yeah? If you care for others more than self, they're going to walk all over you and you're going to be a doormat. So you got to take care of yourself first. That's what our culture tells us. And that's the opposite to what Dharma practice is. So, yeah, this is, I think, something so important to continually focus on. Okay. Do not be satisfied with knowing only one meditation technique, one scripture, or one tantric practice. But for the benefit of others, strive to overcome your limitations and expand your knowledge. So there may be certain things that we find particularly helpful for our own practice. But as Holiness is saying, if we want to benefit others, we have to have a very broad mind of all the different Dharma techniques, because sentient beings have different interests, different dispositions, and we have to meet them where they're at. And if we only have one practice that we know well, there's going to be a lot of sentient beings who we're not going to be able to help because we don't know the practices that are best for them. So even in meditating on emptiness, people from the Sravaka and solitary realizer vehicles, they usually have one method of meditating on emptiness. They use that to meditate on emptiness, and then they go through their path in usually, at the most 7 lifetimes after you become a stream enter, at most 7 lifetimes. Okay, that's from the Sanskrit viewpoint. From the Pali viewpoint, I think it's 3 lifetimes. Or maybe those 2 numbers are reversed. I can't remember. It's in the book. And you attain arhatship. But bodhisattvas have to learn all the different refutations, all the different reasonings for dismantling our ignorance, dismantling our grasping at inherent existence. And then they have to practice bodhisattva path, 3 countless great eons, according to the paramita path. So, just even there, bodhisattva's understanding of emptiness has to be really broad so they can give the right technique to the different people. And the same way with teaching any aspect of the Dharma. Yeah. If you want to teach bodhicitta, you have to be skilled in the 7-point cause and effect and in equalizing and exchanging self for others. Because if you teach, you have to see what technique fits the person that you're dealing with. Okay, so here's what Lama Tsongkhapa says. Each Mahayana scripture, from summaries to the most extensive texts, gives a great many teachings on the profound meaning, but also leaves many things out. So you must draw points that are not taught in certain texts from other texts that do teach those points. And you must draw points that are not taught extensively in certain texts from other texts where they are taught extensively. So you have to have a really good textual understanding, so you'll know whether to speak concisely about the major points or expand to teach extensively. That was Maitri, the cat who walked across and made you all look different for a while. Maitri will introduce you. No, she ran away. Okay. Okay. So here's more Sankappa. You should understand that this is true for the category of the vast bodhisattva deeds as well, in terms of extensive and concise texts and combining the meanings in both. A partial path in which either the profound or the vast is missing cannot be considered complete. So the profound path are the teachings on emptiness. The vast path is all the bodhisattva practices. This is why it is often said that one must be skilled in all vehicles in order to be a spiritual mentor who is qualified to teach the path. So His Holiness put this in the book, for all the people who, would kind of really like to be important and be a teacher. So His Holiness continues, you must be able to discern the difference between an intellectual understanding of the teachings, which is comparatively easy to gain. Is it? Is it? When you read a translation of a Tibetan text, is that intellectual understanding of it easy to gain? But it's comparatively easy to gain, His Holiness says. And discerning that from realization and experience of the teachings, which is more difficult to cultivate and requires years of continuous practice. Do not be infatuated with a few blissful or unusual meditative experiences and think that you have become a great sage qualified to teach the masses. Right? If you've studied in India for a while, especially around Dharamsala, you'll meet lots of people who I call the chai shop gurus. Okay, the chai shop or the tea shops, the little Indian tea shops. So these people have been to like one meditation course for 2 weeks, maybe 3 or 4. And then they go to the chai shop and they start explaining everything that they've learned in the course, and they become a chai shop guru. Yeah. His Holiness is kind of squashing that idea here. Okay. So rather continue to see yourself as a student. After all, until you attain full awakening, you are the Buddha's disciple. And it's true, we are students until we attain Buddhahood. Yeah. Once in a while, we may be in the role of, a leader or a teacher or something. But that's only a temporary role. That's not who we are in the big scheme of things. We're always Buddhist students. Oh, that's the next sentence. Once in a while, you may temporarily be in the role of teaching the Dharma. Improving the state of your mind is your principal occupation, not becoming a famous teacher or building a big Buddhist organization with yourself at the head. Yeah. Social status, wealth, or charisma are not qualities that make a good Dharma teacher. Rather, it is the ability to show someone what to practice and what to abandon. And to do that, a teacher must practice such instructions themselves. Yeah, because what often happens is we take our own worldly concerns. Yeah, I want to be respected. I want to be appreciated. I want people to look up to me. I want to feel like I'm useful. I want, to manage an organization. And we take all this right into the Dharma and then play all these things out with the Dharma. But often our motivation is a worldly motivation. It's not really to help the students. And that's what His Holiness is really calling out. So the next little section here is motivation. Be aware of the audience's Buddha nature and feel honored to share the Dharma. Yeah. So don't come in as, I'm a big, important somebody, but, they have Buddha nature. I am honored to share the Dharma with them. When you teach, you must embody the Dharma. You are not just relaying information. Recite the text clearly and explain it with compassion. Always cultivate a motivation of compassion, care, and concern for the students. And here's a comment from the Pali scriptures about that. The Buddha said, a monastic teaches the Dharma to others with the thought, oh, may they listen to the Dharma from me. Having listened, may they gain confidence in the Dharma. Being confident, may they show their confidence to me. Such a monastic's teaching of the Dharma is impure. Okay? May they listen to the Dharma from me. May I be the one that instills confidence in the Dharma. And then they, again, have faith in me and confidence in me. And the Buddha said, that's impure motivation. So this person ostensibly wants others to gain confidence in the Dharma, but he is not necessarily wishing for the students to understand or practice and receive the benefit of doing so. This person lacks humility and does not respect the Buddha and Dharma. His principal wish is to receive offerings, reputation, and status. Some religious leaders, both Buddhist and non-Buddhist, use religion as a way to procure money or to earn a living. Doing this not only harms the teacher, it also damages the faith of others, causing them to turn away from spiritual teachings that could benefit them. For this reason, Dharma teachers and leaders must continuously check their motivation to make sure one of the 8 worldly concerns has not crept in. Okay. In the above passage, the Buddha was speaking to monastics, who were the principal teachings of the Dharma at that time. Nowadays, many lay practitioners who have families and children to support also teach, making the issue of earning one's livelihood through offerings from teaching the Dharma, sorry, I'm not reading this properly. Okay, so making the issue of earning one's livelihood through offerings from teaching the Dharma even more delicate. Okay, this requires a great deal of thought and care so that one's motivation remains pure by sharing the Dharma with others. Okay, so if you're a layperson and you're supporting your family and yourself from teaching the Dharma, then it's very easy for the mind to go, okay, well, how much are we charging for the tickets to the Dharma talk? How much are we charging for the retreat? or even you do everything for dana, yeah, then it's, well, which places give more dana? Because I'll teach in those places. But the places who don't give very much dana, I don't want to teach there. Okay? So this kind of thing can arise in the mind for lay practitioners easily because they're making their living off of this. Monastics, personally, we wear the same clothes every day. We have a simple lifestyle. That doesn't matter. But sometimes, like in Asia, the teachers are very often they're not responsible, but the students, when the teachers go out to teach, hope that the teacher will bring back a lot of donations for the monastery. Or they hope when, how they sometimes have the pictures of little monks and nuns, and then you can be a benefactor. They hope that they will find many benefactors for the monastery. Okay. So sometimes that enters into it. Other teachers, one of my teachers, he just refused to do any of that. I don't know what his monastery thought about it. Okay. To be a Dharma teacher, you must not only know the Dharma well and teach with a compassionate motivation, you must be humble. Generally speaking, people in the West who are educated, wealthy, or powerful tend to be proud. Yeah, he knows us well, huh? Although their knowledge may be limited, their confidence is often inflated. If a teacher knows a lot about Buddhism but practices very little, pride may easily arise. Therefore, do not become so busy teaching that you neglect your own practice. If your practice is successful, you will be more modest and thus more suitable to teach others. Okay. Dharma teachers must also cultivate deep patience. Because students are under the influence of afflictions and karma, they will make mistakes. They will not always practice what you instruct or follow your advice. That's true. Sometimes they may act out their emotional needs, and people, and many of us may have done that. We go to our teachers and, we have emotional needs for somebody in authority to praise us or speak kindly to us or something like that. And we often look to our Dharma teachers to be the parent we didn't have or to fulfill those emotional needs. And our Dharma teachers, that's not why they're there. They're there to teach us the path to liberation. And what's also interesting is that some of you may have done this. I've did that, but I'm about to relay. You go to you have a private appointment with your teacher, and you go and you want to tell the teacher your whole story. So you're kind of thinking of your teacher either as a best friend or a therapist. So you want to tell my childhood and my mother and my father and this and that from my childhood and what happened and the trauma I experienced in first grade and in fifth grade. And we want to tell our whole story because we feel like, well, I need to be open to the Lama so he can teach me what I need to learn. Well, my teachers, my Tibetan teachers, totally uninterested in my story. They couldn't care less. Yeah. And I remember in the early days going there and trying to tell my story. And then they interrupt and change the subject. Or they say, what are your questions? Or Well, and it took me a few of these things to realize, oh, duh, this isn't the way I'm supposed to relate to a spiritual mentor. They're not there to meet my emotional needs. Okay. Yeah, they're not there to give me therapy for my neuroses. They're there to teach me the Dharma. And then with the Dharma they teach me, if I practice that, that will help me with a lot of my emotional issues. Okay. So their role is to teach, but then I have to practice. And then that way, my mind gets transformed. Okay. So be careful to act wisely in these situations and be patient with students when they do not meet your expectations. Oh my goodness. You have so many expectations. Somebody comes along, they're so turned on by the Dharma. You think they're going to be a really good student. They come for 3 months and then they vanish. Totally vanish. Okay? So you have to watch what you expect from people. Okay? Because otherwise, it doesn't turn out well. Okay. Do not give up on others. Remember that this is an excellent opportunity to increase your own compassion. As teachers become more well-known and popular, they should become more humble. Do you realize how many times His Holiness is using the word humble in these pages when I'm reading? Yeah. If you become arrogant, demanding, or controlling, it is a sure sign that you have neglected your Dharma practice. Shariputra once described the awe-inspiring qualities of the Buddha while the Buddha sat humbly listening. Afterwards, Venerable Udali, who witnessed this, marveled. This is what Venerable Udali said. It is marvelous how content the Blessed One is, how satisfied and restrained. When being endowed with such power and influence, he does not make a display of himself. If the wanderers professing other doctrines were able to discern in themselves even one of such qualities, they would proclaim it with a banner. Okay. So, two incidents that are coming to mind for me. One is with Bishop. What's the name of the bishop that His Holiness wrote?
Desmond Tutu.
Desmond Tutu. Okay. So when I lived in Seattle many years ago, Desmond Tutu was coming and he was giving a talk. And so I wanted to hear him. So I went. And so it was sponsored by Seattle University or one of the universities. So all these people get up and start introducing Desmond Tutu with this praise and this, and he did this, and he did that, this and that. And Desmond Tutu is sitting there like this, looking so bored, totally bored, while all these people are like praising him to the sky. It was only when he got the microphone and he started talking about, kindness and compassion, then he revved up. But hearing them praise him, boring. Another time, this was the year His Holiness won the Nobel Peace Prize. Yeah, and he was in Irvine, California then. And he was also being, there was some kind of conference, and he was on the panel of experts of the conference. It was a panel of experts. He was one of them. An audience of a few thousand people. And somebody in the audience asked a question and directed to His Holiness. And he sat there. And then he said, I don't know. And the audience was totally silent. Here was the experts on the panel, the expertest of the experts on the panel, who said in public, I don't know. Who else would do that? Nobody. You would shame the person who asked the question. You would make up an answer. You would change the topic. You would do anything in front of a crowd of people but say, I don't know. But that's what His Holiness said. And after he said, I don't know, he looked at the other experts and he said, what do you people think? Huh? He's asking their ideas as if he's a nobody. But, this is like such an example. His Holiness, and Desmond Tutu can talk so much about being humble. But then when you see them actually be like that, it's amazing. Yeah, it's such a good example. Okay. However, many people may gather around you to learn the Dharma. Remember that your first job is that of a practitioner, a disciple. Maintain a good relationship with your teachers and practice as they instruct. For the purpose of instilling humility and not being spoiled by praise or fame, bow to the three jewels and to the lineage of teachers, as well as reflect on impermanence before sitting on the Dharma seat. And then the chapter goes on with all these other quite wonderful things in it, but we're out of time, so we have time for a few questions.
I wanted to ask who the author was of this Prasangika version of the grounds that you found.
Oh, it was, as you can see, I'm very bad with names. It was a Mongolian Lama, and I found his treatise, and it was one of Jeffrey Hopkins' students named Jules Levinston or Levine or Jules somebody. He translated it. Okay, let me find, what was his name?
I should ask first, is it in English? Because if it's in Tibetan or anything else.
Yeah, no, this is in English.
Oh,
that's how I got it. Okay, let me see if it's here, 239. It's in the book. No, it's not there. Maybe it's up front.
maybe I'll have to buy the book to find out, eh?
Yeah, it looks like it. I used to remember names and things quite well, but the file is full and not storing more things. But he was a Mongolian Lama who lived last maybe 19th or 20th century, like that. Okay, but if you look, Jules Levinson or something, do you want to see if you can find it? Okay. Who's going to see if she can find it? But in the meantime,
Thank you.
If you have more questions.
Let's see if we got somebody. Well, I was also thinking when you were talking about other religions and, Christian or Judeo-Christian or Catholics, they die and thinking, that God is going to come and take them away. Well, we do kind of similar things, we think the Dakas and Dakinis are going to come and take us, for Vajrayana practitioners. I think we have a lot of things that are similar with these other.
Well, except if you're thinking the Dakas and Dakinis are going to come get you, it also explains in the text how you have to practice and what stage of realization you have to have for that to happen. And it's not just,
It's going to happen like that. No.
Yeah. I mean, even going to Amitabha's Pure Land, they say, oh, it's for common people, it's easy. But if you really read the scriptures about that, no, you have to have good ethical discipline and bodhicitta, some awareness of emptiness. Yeah. So there is that similarity, but if you scratch the surface a little bit.
And last time you said about mind training being so important, I just wanted to agree with that. Out of all the things that has been so beneficial.
Yeah.
I think. Oh, here, Jack.
Me too.
Actually, this is a question about the future volumes. You mentioned that the seventh is going to come out in the spring of next year. What's the anticipation for the further volumes?
Okay, well, the next 3 volumes are all about emptiness. Okay, so that one is coming out in May. It's called Searching for the Self. The next volume was supposed to come out in December, because we're doing it on a 9-month thing. So from March, the original publication date, to December is 9 months. Right now, I talked to Wisdom and they said, we'll do everything we can to keep it on schedule. But if the printer doesn't have paper, and Simon and Schuster, told them it's better to delay the publication date than keep the publication date but not have the book out. Okay, so hopefully.
No, that's good. Yeah, that's good, because I didn't know whether it'd be like a 2-year cycle, 9-month cycle.
Oh, yeah.
Once we get over the hump of the pandemic, then.
Yeah, it'll be 9 months. Everything so far has been pretty much 9 months. Sometimes they have to delay it by a few weeks or even a month. But this is the first time that it's a whole year after the previous volume. Okay. So we have 3 volumes on emptiness, so 7, 8, and 9. And then volume 10 will be on Tantra. And I'm not sure if I'll get everything in 1 volume about Tantra, or if it'll take 2. I mean, actually doing Tantra could take many, many volumes, but there's already many good things on Tantra that people can read. Yeah. I want to talk about some of the things that people don't always get from reading the other books. I asked His Holiness, because people ask me, I attended an initiation, but I don't know if I actually took it. What do you say to those people? Or people say, I took the tantric vows, but I don't really want to hold them anymore, and I don't want to do the practice anymore. So I asked His Holiness, what do we say to people like that? And how do we try and do things to prevent that from happening? So.
The scholar's name is Losang Thadrin Thaya.
Oh, yeah, Losang Thadrin Thaya. Yeah, Losang. So maybe Losang. And then he could be either called Losang Tadrin or Losang Taye. Tadrin is Tadrin, and Taye is Thaye.
No, that's Tayang.
C
No, Tayang.
Tayang, Taiyang. And okay, and his dates are 1867 to 1935. So try. It's. What did you Google to find it online?
I found the Losang Taiyang in the book, and then that.
She found where did you find Losang Taiyang in the book?
Like page 238.
Page 238. And then she went online and she found the whole text.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because Jules did it for either his master's or his PhD. So he translated the text and then he also, wrote an explanation of it.
Sorry, it's 268.
268 in the book. That's the
okay. Thank you. Thank you for the research. And I think we have another question, Carla.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Am I on?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And sorry to do this to you because it's another book question.
Oh.
But it's one that you had, and it's okay if you don't remember, but just in case. In one of the earlier teachings, you brought up that His Holiness had a favorite book about Buddha's life when he was human, yeah.
Okay. No, it's two different things. Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
What he was saying is I had asked him for teachings on the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And when he pulled out the scripture, he commented that he liked so much reading the scriptures that, the early sutras, because then he got an idea of His Holiness as a person. So it wasn't that particular sutra that was his favorite one, but it was just that whole genre of sutras where it starts out, the Blessed One woke up in the morning and then he went for alms round and then he met so-and-so and they started a Dharma discussion and things like that. So he really likes seeing His Holiness as His Holiness likes seeing the Buddha as a human being like that. In terms of his favorite text, I think Bodhicharyavatara, Shantideva's text, and then also Chandakirti's Madhyamika Avatara, and then Tsongkhapa wrote a commentary on that, Gompa Rapsal, which Thubten Jinpa just translated, and it's published under the title Illuminating the Intent. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And that's published by Wisdom too.
Okay.
Okay.
And if we ever wanted to read some of those sutras, I really don't have anything really much in the sutras. So do you recommend a collection at all, or
These are from the Pali tradition, okay? So it's not contradicting what we do, but it's giving things from a different perspective. Okay, so Bhikkhu Bodhi has translated many of those. They're also published by Wisdom. So you have the middle-length discourses, the connecting discourses, the numerical discourses. If you look in Wisdom, you can find these books. They're quite thick. Yeah.
Okay.
But also what I found really interesting is Bhikkhu Bodhi gave a series of teachings, and there's an audio recording of it on the middle-length discourses. And he would pick out different sutras and kind of arrange them like a lam rim for the Theravada tradition. And those were recorded. And I think if you contact Buddhist Association of the United States. I think you might be able to get it from them.
Oh,
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I found, learning about the Pali tradition very helpful for my practice.
I'll put the link in the chat.
Yeah. Venerable Thubten will put them all in the chat.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. bodhimonastery.org. Yeah. Okay. Good. So let's dedicate and let's really rejoice at what we've done over the last 6 weeks. Yeah, really kind of marvelous going through all these different volumes very quickly, little bits here and there, but still, hopefully it was beneficial and is making us think deeper about the teachings. So let's rejoice and then dedicate.